Recording. Okay. So we're going to be looking at the vendor invoice management and why, what's the purpose behind using the vendor invoice management. The key thing is, this is the word itself says here, there are barriers in the existing accounts payable operations. The existing accounts payable operations is not clean. It does have a lot of gaps in the processes. It works well, but it does have a lot of gaps in the process. So that's why SAP has come up with a tool called vendor invoice management. So the reasons are, organizationally, you have poor vendor relations, means they submit an invoice to you, they don't get paid, they don't know what's happening with the invoice, they don't know when they're going to get paid. Even if they get paid less. Okay. 2, this is the key thing, the most critical thing, excessive cost of processing per invoice. Typically vendors are, range from very high tech to very low tech. You could have a, P2P, peer-to-peer XML based invoice sharing between two organizations, but you can also have a very low tech vendor who is still sending you paper-based invoices. It takes a lot to receive the invoice, open the invoice, scan the invoice, enter the invoice into the system, put a timestamp onto it, and also do the accruals. For accounting purposes, we have to do accruals. Accruals means somebody invoiced you, you didn't pay it, but you need to show that on your books. Okay? So these are the 3 major problems organizationally people are seeing for the existing accounts payable process. For MM people, it's your logistics invoice verification. That means, when you go into your logistics invoice verification, you put a PO and you process. I'm sure you know that. And for the FI people, it's an FB60, FB70, and F110. That process. It works very well, but it is still very inefficient. That process has a lot of gaps and a lot of sour grapes within the organizations. The processes, it's very fragmented, very inefficient, highly inefficient. And I have been in one of the VIM evaluation project. Extremely things are hard coded, lot of rules. Lot of people have implemented SAP for like 10-15 years. Very antique processes, extremely antique old processes. Paper based, labor intensive. You're talking accounts payable departments for large organizations in excess of 150 to 200 people. So there is a small town in Oklahoma where they do all these accounts payable processes for a lot of the big companies. And I've seen building after building after building, all they do is accounts payable over there. Very labor intensive, very highly paper based. Lack of standardization. Somebody submits paper, somebody submits XML, somebody submits EDI, somebody submits fax, somebody submits email. Somebody requests via, orally, verbally, by phone. So it's just a lack of standardization. Okay. Another thing, inadequate AP compliance risk. Compliance risk means same thing, lack of approvals. Okay. Somebody sent an invoice, there is no approval process. You're just paying the guy. Nobody knows who approved it. Nobody knows how much you paid. So lack of compliance. Limited visibility to the liabilities means you received invoice are piling up. You have no clue how much you need to pay, because it's very important for treasury people, very important for globally to see for them how much you need to pay this week, next month, 3 months, 6 months. How much you need to pay, it is very, very, very critical, and there is a lack of visibility how much you need to pay. If you don't know what you need to pay, you cannot borrow the money, your cash flow is very inefficient, and you just kind of in the limbo. no insight into process bottlenecks. People don't know. There is accounts payable processes, in India or in Russia, and there are corporate people over here. You have no insight into what's the problem. Why are we not paying the invoices on time? Why it's taking, instead of 30 days, why it is taking 60 days? But there are a lot of process bottlenecks within the system. A lot of these people, AP people, do Six Sigma. They bring these black belts from Six Sigma. Process optimization people, they look at this entire process. It's very chaotic. Same thing. IT system is fragmented. No workflow. No integration with GL. No integration with AP/AR. So these are all the existing problems with your accounts payable operations today. Okay. So to optimize, the goal for the VIM is to optimize the AP invoicing process, bring consistent payment behavior across countries and organizations. You are in Mexico, you're in Canada, you're in Argentina. Consistent, similar processes. Systematic collaboration across multiple agencies. To collections, to dispute, to accounts payable, to managerially. Global visibility to liabilities. So you have to pay a vendor in Argentina, you have to pay a vendor in China. The accounts payable manager in the US need to be able to see that, immediately, instantaneously. Highly integrated operations with MM, with AP, with AR, with your treasury, with your banking. Okay. And then standardized processes, streamline, streamline, and then no paper-based processes, or maybe automated paper-based processes. And also workflow to minimize the reconciliation and time for your AP. The VIM, SAP Invoice Management System, it's called Vendor Invoice Management System, is a solution by OpenText. SAP has purchased the solution from OpenText. OpenText used to be a separate company. SAP used to collaborate with the OpenText, and now they're kind of partnering together. Okay. So the issues addressed are compliance, inadequate accounts payable processes, excessive cost per invoice, because now I'm going to scan those invoices. I'm going to automate that entire process. So I'm going to reduce my cost per invoice. I'm going to be limiting my visibility, or maybe increasing my visibility to liabilities. I'm going to make it easier to pay prepare the accruals, and I'm going to manage my relations with my vendors. How am I going to do that? Implement a system-driven processes, optimize the process solution, provide a status for all the invoices so everybody can see it, centralized controlled invoice processing, and also invoices are processed accurately and promptly. Keyword, promptly. Okay, so vendors are going to be happy that they're getting paid on time. Typically what happens is vendor sends invoice, it just sits and sits and sits. Of course, it needs to age. If it is net 30, net 45, it needs to age in the system. But sometimes it doesn't even age. It just ages on the paper. It just sits there. Nobody even entered into the system. So nobody knows that it's even pending to be approved. And this is the value proposition. Extensive reporting available on the processes for compliance audit, reduction in AP cost, improvement in the overall plan for cash, shorter cycle time. There's a lot of cash savings. A lot of vendors, for example, a lot of companies in high tech, for example, Apple, Google, Facebook, they're sitting on a ton of cash. Oil companies, they're sitting on a ton of cash. What they would like to do is, their cash is sitting in the bank, it's doing nothing. What they would like to do is ask these vendors, as soon as you submit the invoice, I will pay you. Can I get a discount? Can I get a 2% discount? Can I get a 3% discount? So they're turning cash that is sitting in the bank into profits. I know you need to pay vendors, net 30, net 40, but they're paying on day 1, day 2. So by improving the processes, you're actually increasing the profitability of these companies, because cash sitting in the bank is making 0.2%, 0.1%, because interest rates are very low. If the vendor is giving you 2%, 3%, 4%, because he needs money, he's a small guy, that's a lot of money for big companies. And vast amount of cost caused by status requests and compliance and blah, 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 okay? Manual invoice processing is very inefficient. So what the open text does is it provides a optical character recognition. So if somebody submits by paper, you scan the invoice and it has a rules based engine, so it kind of recognizes where different portions of these invoices need to be scanned and how they need to be scanned. And also it has a workflow, so people can see the invoice at every step of the way. Processor can see it, the manager can see it, and also the scanned image is attached to the actual invoice that you post in SAP. So when you're looking at an SAP invoice, you can actually see the scanned text within the system. So very efficient processes. And also if you have a vendor portal, so you can show them the status. Hey, we processed the invoice, it's in the pipeline and it's ready to get paid, things like that. So very manually managing the invoice process, and results are in SAP process. So all these things are kind of this is like a sales pitch. Let me unmute and kind of ask some questions if anybody has anything to share.
Invoices are coming from different vendors, and if you see about when the invoice is coming, there are three ways of how the invoice comes into the AD system. One is that with the fax, paper, as well as EDI messages. This EDI message is nothing but automatic messages which are automatically system sending from one vendor to the client, or from one point of place to the other point of view electronically. So what it comes to, it goes to the SAP scanning. It's nothing but the way that we all scan our document. Here also, automatically it will go to the document and the scanning machine. The scanning machine, like fax machine, it just scans it, reads it, and it will just make a picture of it, and that picture is going to be processed to the scanning and the archiving device, which is nothing but the optical character recognition software. Recognizes that optical characteristics. It is a separate server. That one is going to be reading that and putting it in the archiving server. Then once the archive that is read, here manually we are going to configure what characteristics that we are going to read and what characteristics that we don't want it to read. And in case a special characteristics comes, how the exception handling is going to be happened. That sort of configuration we are going to do it on ICC and OCR configuration. Once that is done, then it is going to be transformed into the SAP system. Basically, open text was a bolt-on system. So what open text done when SAP don't have this type of capabilities? At the time they developed a piece of code, and that piece of code is mounted onto the SAP using the SAP DAPIs and workflows, as well as the basically they developed in terms of SAP ABAP. Bottom line.
Yeah, if you're not able to hear, just 1 second. So what Raghava is saying is that you receive invoices via fax or via paper, and you scan those things. You scan using an SAP solution called OpenText. OpenText used to be a solution, outside solution where SAP purchased it. And once the OpenText server scans it, enterprise scanning solution scans it, you put the document in something called an archive server. And then within the archive server, you have configuration and you have rules based on how to scan it, how to process these things, what do I do about these invoices. Once that is done, it's going to put back into SAP system right here in the prepare step.
That's exactly right. So basically, the documents may be coming from the AR document, accounts receivable document, or accounts payable document or an HR document, like your, travel and expenses, and, employees information, and all sort of, that sort of documents. The documents may be coming in a different way. So, but, when we read those documents, we are supposed to read it in a different folder or different segment to divert, because system is dumb. You need to tell the system, how these things are supposed to be handled, and which department is going to be handled, and which department is going to be approving it, and when it's approving, what sort of approval process is supposed to be taken care of, and what sort of approval step in terms of auditing is concerned, they are supposed to consider, and what sort of sovereign actuary, mechanism they are supposed to keep it in terms of, approval process and all sort of things.
Yeah.
All those things, configurations that we do it in OCC, optical capacities, where the archive server is. The one that we do in the configuration and everything, which is called ICC, Image Capture Center. So the Image Capture Center captures the image and converts that image onto the readable optical or in the characteristics. So once the characteristics are available, it's nothing but a document that you are putting, physically putting, like, the 60 of which, 70 of the, whatever the document that you are putting it, like that, it's become a physical document manually, that whatever we are entering into the SAP system. So once that is there, and now the system has that information, now you have a luxury to, where to send it, how to send it, whether you want to park it, or you want to post it, or when you are posting it, what sort of validations that you need to consider from the, your SAP customization, and what sort of exception handling that you need to do, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How you can take care of it.
Yeah, one Aku and Kawar, invoices come in two different types. One is PO based invoice, two is a non-PO based invoice. Typically we call it an FI invoice or an MM invoice. If it is an MM invoice, that invoice has a reference to a purchase order, so you need to post that in your logistics invoice verification. If it is an FI invoice, it does not have a reference to a PO. So that means there is no vendor, there is a vendor behind it, but there is no PO behind it. So that's why it's kind of in between both FI and as well as MM. So the invoice can be two types: PO based invoice, non-PO based invoice. If it is PO based invoice, it goes to logistics invoice verification. Non-PO based invoice, it goes directly to accounts payable and gets processed. But they both end up in the same place, which is the payment program, which is F110, because you need to pay the vendor at some point. So the organizations are kind of mixed, AP purchasing, they're kind of, because everybody has their own responsibilities. So it's kind of falls kind of in between. That's what I would say, between AP and FI. So AP person can also learn VIM, and also an FI person can also learn VIM. But it's going to be, I think for FI people, it's going to be challenging for both people, because it's a new technology, because it's nothing to do with AP, nothing to do with MM, nothing to do with FI. So it's a brand new tool. It's just the only connection is your process, but everything else is pretty much new. You need to learn the whole thing. It's your MM skill or FI skill is not going to help you much, because it's all open text based. It's an archiving server. You need to learn how to configure just it's a brand new tool. But connection is to your MM, connection is to your FI. Got that, Aku? Okay, so why VIM is important is because of this cache optimization, or cycle time optimization. you receive custom cash from the customers as well as you pay cash to the to the vendors. So the longer the invoices are sitting, some companies that are flush in cash, they just would like to pay and then make use of the cash and improve the overall supply chain or cash supply chain. It's called FSCM. I'm going to go through these things really fast. Typical process is receive the invoice, you resolve the exceptions, you approve the invoice, you settle and pay, and you reconcile. That's the typical invoicing process. Okay, that's what he's saying is that accounts payable invoice is the most commonly shared or outsourced financial processes, and there's a lot of optimization. There's the continuous improvement process and quality, automatic matching of payment, workflow, imaging and scanning, intercompany reconciliation, e-invoicing, OCR, KPI dashboards. So kind of you need all these things to see where your accounts payable is. Okay, gonna skip that. We already talked about OpenText is a tool that automates all these things. Okay, this is another good slide, I think. We talked about once everything is scanned, it comes into the inbox. You basically do your preparation. You do the interpretation of the invoice. You transform the paper invoice. You do the invoice monitoring. It's like a cockpit, verify and complete. It triggers the workflows. How it needs to be routed. Exceptions will be routed to one person. If everything is right, it goes to accounts payable manager. So there's a lot of exception handling and collaboration between different parties. People can put in their comments. PO is missing, cost center is missing. It's not a standard invoicing format. So many things. And once everything is done, goes for the manager approval. You post the invoice into SAP and you release it for payment. Okay, this was the slide that we were looking at. If it is an EDI, it's pretty easy process, no issues. EDI or XML goes to some kind of a processing tools. Your gateway goes to SAP PI XI. That PI converts that into an IDOC format, and then you do the preparing of the incoming invoice. Automatically post the invoice, prepare the exceptions. IDOC usually catches those exceptions, and then it kicks off the workflow. It has to be custom workflow built in, how manager, senior manager, director, VP, based on the volume, how you need to approve those things, and then you resolve the exceptions, automatically post invoices once everything is done, and then you put the payment process. And if it's not EDI, it goes to fax and paper. You scan it, we put it in the archive server. And the archive server, you have rules. That's the whole thing about this VIM is this piece. We're going to learn a lot about this piece, and we're going to learn a lot about this piece. How do I prepare? How do I scan? How do I archive? How do we do the interpretation? How do I transform? So all these things we're going to learn in the VIM. And also this exception processing. How do we collaborate? How do we handle the exceptions? So if it is this, nothing is going to change. Your existing process EDI will still remain the same. I think your manual processes are the ones that's going to be most impacted, and that's what we're going to be focusing mostly in this class. Just going to bypass this thing. Okay, go ahead, Raghav. What is this saying?
How this is nothing but a invoicing screen. See, what happens is the moment that the document is scanned and the optical reader is recognized all the characteristics, who is the vendor, who is how much they need to pay, what is the cost center and all sort of things. What it does is it will make a document, and that document is nothing but the document that you are seeing here. It's nothing but the processing screen. So it will come to the coder. There are different roles. The first one is it comes to the coder. The coder is nothing but a person into this, whether all the information is there or not, and if the existing information is correct or not. If the existing information is correct, and is there, because there is a validation check on this. So when they do the validation check, automatically whatever the customizing rules that you kept in, again is for a given invoice type, automatically it will validate and it will throw the exceptions. When it is throwing the exceptions, the coder can also identify, and it can also be routed to a particular department or a particular person. But if it is a PO, then it will send to the person who requested that material or goods, so that they will rectify the document. So that's sort of because they have the collaboration, they can put the agent there, so automatically the workflow goes. So basically, the bottom line is this is how the initial screen looks like once the document is read from the open text.
Yeah, I think once it is scanned, this is the screen you would see this information. So what they're saying is that it has a familiar SAP look and feel, kind of looks like an SAP transaction here, but it's an open text solution. You can do an automated or manual data entry, immediate data validation. You can actually see the data, right here. Who is the vendor, vendor number, vendor name, the PO number, the amount, USD, net amount. You can see all this information. You can see the remitter, and if there, you can see that this is a duplicate, invoice or not. So duplicate invoicing is a big problem for accounts payable. So it's kind of catches, if it's a early duplication detection. So it's kind of the initial screen where accounts, the OCR or the VIM screen is processing the invoice. Some of the information to be very familiar to you guys. You can see the PO number, vendor number. Actually, it's the same number that we see in SAP. 3000, reference text, document date, currency, amount, the address. Okay, I think this is the LIV screen. It's logistics invoice price discrepancy.
So basically, this is nothing but you guys seen the previous screen, am I right? This is one of the tabs of it. Basically, once you put the information and you come to the next tab, here you can see that this is nothing but a dashboard sort of thing for the AP processor. So here, he can see each and every document, how that whether the document has exception handling or all sort of things, all the disturbances in terms of logistic invoice verification is concerned. You can see that here.
Absolutely. I think this is great. Actually, you can see the PO number 450016343, quantity is 43, price is 148.10, means my PO price is 148.10 cents. So 43 pieces is 6,368.3. My goods receipt, I did receive 43 pieces, exactly the same amount, but my invoice is for one piece and it's for $1,000. So I can see it's like a cockpit. I can see, oh, how come? Right? My invoice doesn't match what my PO is saying, what my goods receipt is saying. Something wrong here.
Another thing is also, Hari, if you look about that, the document and item on a PO may be having around 60 to 80 or 90 line items, but on which line item, what goods that you receive and what how much you are invoicing it or how much you are paying it, that also is given very clearly.
Okay. Yep. You can see
the PO number and the item number 00010.
Yep. Yep, right here, item. Yeah, this is item number. This is item number 1. Yeah, this is item number 1, and this is item number 1. You can see the PO history.
Pretty sleek and pretty beautiful. But the issue is when it works so smooth. If it is not working, that's where the issues are. It is very cumbersome to, unless otherwise you don't have the proper thorough knowledge. It is very tough to an ordinary person or a AP processor or a AP coder
Yeah, you can see right away it flagged as LIV price discrepancy. The PO price supposed to be 6368, but the invoice price is 1000. So it marked as logistics invoice verification price discrepancy, and it put it in the workflow, and it put as a workflow item. Somebody should be looking at it to see why there is a discrepancy. Somebody is going to do their analysis. Everything matches. It's going to go through the financial, the actual authorization approval. If not, it's going to wait and get processed for the somebody to look at this. And you can also
the fun part here is you can put the different ABC analysis where you can say that the price discrepancy is going to be only by 0.005 or 0.5, like that. The tolerance that you can mention in the customization where the system will read the VIM customization as well as the SAP customization, and they will verify in terms of the tolerance between the the goods that are in the PO versus the invoice, and it will throw the exception.
Yep.
It's awesome, no doubt.
Okay, next is the invoice approval with assignment of accounting information. So this is the actual approval of the invoice. You can see the invoice summary, vendor information, invoice amount, and this is actually your offsetting entry here, the GL account, the expense account that you're going to be entering right here. And you can also do a one-click approval. So you can see the approval history, and you can view the image, invoice image. So now that the invoicing getting posted, you click here and you can see the actual scanned invoice image. So that's the beauty of the whole thing. Okay, and easy delegation to enter the accounting information and the approval history. You can see who the approvers will be, invoice submitted for approval. So you're posting the invoice now, looking at the image, doing the account coding, and submitting it for invoicing. So it's not, you're not entering the invoice from the scratch, right? So it's already has a lot of the basic information. So all you're doing is putting the GL account number, and it should already, the workflow should already kick in, and then just send it and add your comments and send it to the next step. Next step is the liability report for accruals. Analyze the liability for accurate accruals. You can show me all the parked invoices. Show me all the data in process invoices. Include all the credit memos. So you can see the total liability of all the invoices that are unprocessed, basically. Okay, supports large or undistributed organizations with transparent routing. So you can have a buyer in the US, approver in Argentina. You can have a shared services, in Russia or India, some other place. So you can have a global organization, so you can kind of share information, this thing globally. Okay.
Yeah, and it just to add to you guys is basically, for example, one of my typical experiences, we used to have a VIM 7 here, and in Europe we have the VIM 6, and the way that the exception handling is done in US is entirely different from the US, Europe exception handling. So, and both the places, but as a corporate is in US, at the end of the day, all the approvals and are very, depending upon what dollar amounts that if some particular threshold is there, automatically those are supposed to come into the US for the approvals because the corporate office is there. So that sort of mismatch, or even the lower version to higher version, things also we can pull together, and when we are submitting it, we can submit it to the file in a common way.
Very good. So bottom line, the invoice automation, OpenText VIM automates the invoices. Automation of invoice powers financial transformation. automates labor-intensive invoice receipt and reconciliation, frees up line operators from financial administration work, and it gives you comprehensive overview of invoicing processes, increased control, better use of your cash, and state-of-art shared services delivery platform. So it gives a nice tool for people in India, Russia, Argentina to kind of comprehensively manage the administrative process. Okay.
Not that thoroughly prepared like Hari, but this is a very good point. Or the way that I'm going to talk is in detail about the SAP VIM or OpenText VIM is concerned. The topic is basically that because there are 2 points. One is that I'm talking about SAP VIM, and SAP VIM means the bolt-on that is going to be happen on SAP side, and the documentation that just now Hari showed is how that the image is going to be captured to the OCR. From the OCR, how it is going to come into the ICC. From ICC, how it is going to be loaded to the SAP part. That is the configuration that Hari showed it. Once you wanted to configure, capture, and how you are going to process in terms of SAP is concerned, or how the OAWC transaction is going to work, and how the dashboard is going to look. All those things I'm going to cover. The basic, the things that I'm going to cover here is Hari is given really good picture of overview. I will also go through a little bit more details of the overview is, and what are the VIM terminology, and how the flow is, and what is the VIM dashboard is, and how the invoice approval is going to be happened in VIM, and how the exception handling is going to be happened in VIM, and how the mobile integration is going to be happened in the VIM, and how the invoicing in terms of the workplace as an administrator, how we are going to do that type of activities, and the integration with the CRM, the integration with the SRM, SAP SRM, CRM, and integration with in terms of HR, the last one, and apart from that, what are the reports that we can develop to leverage our clients much more optimizing in terms of reporting capabilities is concerned, and how the archiving and file management is going to be happened, and how that link is going to be managed, that sort of things. And here basically at this point of time I'm just today I just focused on first 2 things, and one is the VIM overview, which is Hari is given very thoroughly, but I wanted to put in a different way of the same process here. So basically this is how the typical accounting process is going to be shown up. So the vendor is going to send any vendor or whoever is going to send a invoice, and he can send it to like an EDI, fax, or paper, and it will normally what happens is these things are going to come to the mail room. Once the mail room receives that, and the mail room is going to be screen that through the fax machine or an optical reader and everything. Once that is read from the mail room, then it is the invoicing indexing. Means basically now paper format or a different formatted thing is going to be moved into the readable or our communication base or document, and that is going to come as into the accounting department. The accounting department is some of the places it directly can part as a ACU document, or sometimes it just stays as just a document sort of. Then once the accounting department verifies it and looks into it, and then they approve or reject. When they reject it, once again it will go to the coder. So basically the coder is 2 types of coders are there. The way that Hari explained, one is that PO invoice and non-PO invoice. The PO invoices are basically PO-based invoices, so automatically the accounting department rejects it. It will directly go to the PO initiator or the PR initiator or the person who requested it, whether it's a buyer or a individual person in terms of SRM is concerned, or in terms of the CRM and whoever writes that. So in non-PO process, there is no such type of thing. So that's why what happens is a different person where he picks up the phone or, he verifies it or, he checks the document and, he do, what sort of things. Then, it will come to the approval. Then once it approves it, it's basically, you will go back and, it will remit it in the, by using the pay check or, ACH, whatever the way of payment method that we have with the vendor. So, do you guys have any questions on this? Anybody have any questions? So basically, this is a typical accounting process that, I just wanted to,
Hello?
sorry, not it. So then coming back here, this is a basic component of payments. So basically, how, in terms of landscape, how it is going to be showed up. So you have the VIM analytics is going to sit on the top of it, and so basically the email scan is one part of it, and the email scan is nothing but a physical machine, and then the OCR with the ICC, this is nothing but a server, and the communication from email scan to the OCR and ICC, maybe HTTP or FTP or whatever the connection it is. And from the email scan, you can also do the e-invoicing also. And once it comes to the OCR, it automatically loads into the repository. From the repository system, from the OCR, it also sends one sort of document into the document processing, and the second one is it stores the information. In the document processing, the document is going to be put to the AP processor. Then, AP processor is going to be, approve, view, and do his mundane work using the SAP, whatever the GUI portal or mobile, whatever it is getting exception handling. It's all together in different, sort of process. So that's why exception handling is given in a different way. And, the integration is like, CI, CRM, or SAP is thoroughly integrated in terms of, the components of the. You guys have any questions on this?
Hello, Raghav.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I couldn't able to see the percentage. It's coming and going, it's not, stable.
Yeah, I'm able to see it.
Yeah, these documents are little bit these are all my, I made these documents, so